Good morning, and thank you for joining me for this week's news roundup. Today, I'll cover the most significant U.S. financial, political, and global events from May 12th to May 15th, 2025. Let's start with U.S. financial. NEWS Financial. News. The U.S. financial scene this week was dominated by trade developments and their economic ripple effects. A major story broke on May 12th when the U.S. and China agreed to a 90-day tariff reduction, slashing U.S. duties on Chinese goods to 30% from 145%, and China's tariffs on U.S. goods to 10% from 125%. This truce, reported by Bloomberg, led to a sharp rally in global stock markets. With the S&P 500 hitting its highest level since early March, the Nasdaq 100 also surged, entering a bull market driven by tech giants like Nvidia, which is set to supply semiconductors for a Saudi data center project. The dollar strengthened significantly, climbing the most since November 2024. As fears of a global recession eased, however, analysts remain cautious. Reuters noted on May 12th that investors fear further U.S.-China negotiations could be a long slog, with risks of economic slowdown persisting. On May 14th, the U.S. slashed the de minimis tariff on small Chinese parcels to as low as 30%, offering relief to e-commerce players like Shein and Temu. This followed Trump's February decision to end the de minimis exemption, which he blamed for enabling a flood of Chinese goods and fentanyl trafficking. Meanwhile, Yahoo Finance reported on May 14th that China lifted a Boeing ban, signaling a thaw in trade tensions. Though U.S. soybean exports could still drop 20% if no permanent deal is reached. Inflation data also drew attention. On May 13th, that April's consumer price index fell to 2.3%, the lowest since February 2021, with declines in gasoline, groceries, and apparel. However, economists warn that Trump's tariffs could reignite inflation as early as this month, potentially impacting consumer prices and the housing market. Where rising construction costs are already a concern, these developments reflect a financial landscape buoyed by temporary trade relief, but shadowed by uncertainty and inflationary pressures. U.S. political news. In the political front, President Trump's administration made significant moves. On May 12th, Trump signed an executive order to lower prescription drug prices, addressing a long-standing financial strain for U.S. patients, as reported by Al Jazeera. The order aims to reduce costs, though critics like Senator Bernie Sanders argue it wrongly blames foreign countries rather than U.S. pharmaceutical companies, which wield substantial influence. This move highlights Trump's focus on domestic economic issues amid his trade agenda. Also on May 12th, House Republicans unveiled details of Trump's tax plan, a cornerstone of his domestic agenda, according to CNN. The plan involves trillions in tax breaks. Though specifics remain sparse, this proposal signals the administration's intent to push fiscal policy changes. Likely sparking debates over economic equity and federal spending, Trump's diplomatic efforts also made headlines. On May 13th, the White House announced a $142 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia, part of Trump's four-day Gulf tour, as reported by The Guardian. During this trip, Trump is set to meet Syria's new leader, Ahmad al-Shara, marking the first U.S.-Syrian presidential meeting since 2000, who overthrew Bashar al-Assad in 2024, offered incentives like a Trump Tower in Damascus and diplomatic recognition of Israel, aligning with Trump's America First platform, prioritizing U.S. economic and security interests. Posts on X also highlighted unverified claims, such as the release of the last American hostage by Hamas and a U.S. Houthi ceasefire, reflecting public interest in Trump's foreign policy, but lacking confirmation from major outlets. These stories underscore a politically active week. With Trump balancing domestic reforms and international diplomacy, world news globally, trade, conflict, and humanitarian issues took center stage. The U.S.-China tariff truce, starting May 14th, was a global focal point, with China's finance ministry pausing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods for 90 days. Yahoo Finance reported on May 15th that Trump claimed India offered zero tariffs, urging Apple to stay in the U.S. while Xi Jinping backed Panama against U.S. pressure. signaling China's push to expand influence in Latin America. Highlight shifting global trade dynamics. In the Middle East, Reuters reported on May 14th that Israel intensified Gaza bombardment, killing 80 people. As Trump visited the Gulf, Israel expressed dismay at being bypassed in Trump's diplomatic efforts, which prioritized Gulf states and Syria. Meanwhile, a U.S.-backed aid group is set to start work in Gaza by late May under a criticized plan, reflecting ongoing humanitarian challenges. The India-Pakistan ceasefire along the line of control, brokered by the U.S. on May 11th, held but remained tense. The Guardian reported on May 12th that both nations claimed victory, with celebrations in each country. Though Kashmir residents demanded long-term solutions, U.S. officials Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance played a key role in de-escalating the conflict, which had raised nuclear fears. Lastly, posts on X mentioned unverified claims of Putin wanting to negotiate with Ukraine and progress on the Abraham Accords. But these lack confirmation and reflect speculative sentiment rather than confirmed developments. These global stories highlight a world navigating trade realignments, fragile peace efforts, and persistent conflicts. Conclusion. To wrap up, the past few days saw U.S. financial markets rally on a U.S.-China tariff truce, with tech stocks and the dollar gaining, though inflation risks loom. Politically, Trump advanced domestic policies on drug prices and taxes while making waves. Internationally, with a Saudi arms deal and a Syrian meeting. Globally, trade tensions eased slightly, but conflicts in Gaza and fragile ceasefires in South Asia underscored ongoing instability. These events reveal interconnected challenges, trade policies shaping economic outcomes, political decisions influencing global alliances, and unresolved conflicts demanding sustained attention. As these stories unfold, their impacts on markets, governance, and international stability will be critical to watch. Thank you for listening, and I welcome any questions.